People helping people.
Soviet leader Gorbachev in Britain prepares for a meeting with the Queen. President Bush and Israeli Prime Minister Shamir talk, but don't seem to find much common ground. And 49-year-old Lee Trevino has the lead going into day 2 of the Masters. This is the CBS Morning News. Good morning. I'm John Ferrugia. Charles Osgood and Faith Daniels are off today. It's Friday, April 7th. And leading our news this morning, getaway day for Mikhail Gorbachev in London. The Soviet leader will dine with Queen Elizabeth before he leaves for home. But first, a highly touted speech at the Guildhall in London. Barry Peterson is there.
Mr. Gorbachev is arriving now here at Guildhall, an historic place where President Ronald Reagan made his famous speech last May after the Moscow summit. This will be Mr. Gorbachev's second major speech this week. Earlier, he outlined his Central America policy during a speech in Havana. Today, he is expected to talk about problems in Europe. What he will say is not exactly known. During his London visit, he has been talking about NATO plans to modernize its nuclear missiles, a topic that may come up again today. Gorbachev believes such modernization runs counter to his efforts at disarmament.
And why should we put money into these new systems and rearrange our arsenals when we have begun another process in opposite direction, a process of disarmament? Mrs. Thatcher didn't agree with it.
Despite their disagreement on this fundamental issue, Mrs. Thatcher and Gorbachev made a point of making it clear they are friends. The smiles were everywhere. And at a Downing Street dinner, they agreed to disagree once again on the issue of nuclear arms.
But both our countries know from bitter experience that conventional weapons do not deter war in Europe, whereas nuclear weapons have done so for over 40 years.
I am a confirmed opponent of nuclear weapons and strongly advocate their total elimination. Mrs. Thatcher perceives a good measure of romanticism in this approach. I cannot accept that.
Sending a message to Europe is not the only thing on Mr. Gorbachev's agenda today. He may also have a message for the Queen, an invitation to come visit Moscow, extended when the Gorbachevs have lunch later today at Windsor Castle. Barry Peterson, CBS News at Guildhall in the City of London.
In Washington, Israeli Prime Minister Shamir visits Capitol Hill today after being wined and dined at the White House last night. President Bush toasted Israeli-American friendship at the state dinner. Earlier in the day, the president gave cautious support to Shamir's proposal for Palestinian elections in the Israeli-occupied territories.
The United States believes that elections in the territories can be designed to contribute to a political process of dialogue and negotiation.
But Shamir attaches conditions to his peace agenda. The elections would be only for Palestinians who accept Israeli guidelines, and Shamir will not negotiate with the PLO or for an independent Palestinian state. Secret documents introduced at the Oliver North trial suggest that George Bush played a bigger role in aiding Nicaragua's Contra rebels than he's admitted. The documents show that Mr. Bush, as vice president, pressured Honduras to funnel Contra aid from foreign governments after Congress outlawed U.S. assistance. Rita Braver has more on the trial and on North as a witness.
Oliver North will be back on the stand today, continuing testimony in his own defense. He was low-key in earnest as he launched into his testimony yesterday, his wife Betsy looking on. The defense strategy was clear from the beginning. North is attempting to persuade the jury that his every action was approved by higher-ups. North said he took over U.S. Contra support when Congress banned CIA involvement because the president was adamant that those people we had put in the field should not be abandoned. And he testified that his guiding light in taking over the operations was the late CIA Director William Casey. North testified that Casey, along with former National Security Council Chiefs Robert McFarlane and John Poindexter, approved every trip he took to set up military operations in Central America. The jury paid close attention as North demonstrated the slideshow he used to drum up support for the Contras, and as he insisted that he always stopped short of asking for contributions himself or suggesting that donations were tax-exempt. And as for withholding of information from Congress about Third Nation Contra funding, North declared, "I was told point blank by Mr. McFarlane that was the direction of the President of the United States, that I would not, could not reveal it." For now, Oliver North is having things his way, but the independent counsel is expected to put him through a difficult cross-examination. Rita Braver, CBS News at the federal courthouse in Washington.
President